You know, we tend to think that low intelligence is, well, super obvious, right? Like a bad test score or some huge glaring mistake. But what if the real signs are hiding in plain sight? Today, we're going to dig into the psychology of those tiny, almost invisible habits you might not even notice. Habits that don't just reflect how smart you are, they're actually shaping it day in and day out. So let's just get right into it with a big question. When you hear the word intelligence, what pops into your head? Is it just a number, a grade on a report card from back in the day? The thinking we're exploring today suggests it's something way more alive, something that shows itself in all the little things we do. And that really is the heart of it all. These little habits, they're like a window into how your brain is actually working. And here's the crucial part. Psychologists say that when you repeat these habits, you're not just looking less intelligent, you're literally reinforcing the neural pathways that keep your mind from growing and adapting. You're wiring your brain to stay stuck. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to break these habits down into three big patterns. First, the cognitive shortcuts our brains just love to take. Second, the ways we actively dodge any kind of hard thinking. And third, the blind spots that our own ego creates. And then, the best part, we'll get into how to start rewiring all of it. All right, first up, cognitive shortcuts and traps. This is all about what you might call mental laziness. That moment when your brain just defaults to the easiest, most comfortable answer, which is not always the smartest one. Think about this for a second. Do you have a pair of lucky socks you have to wear for a big presentation? Or do you find yourself avoiding cracks in the sidewalk? It seems harmless, I know, but it's a classic example of a cognitive shortcut that psychologists call magical thinking. So what's happening here is your brain is basically connecting dots that aren't really there. You wore the socks, something good happened, and bam, now they're linked forever. The problem is, you're outsourcing your logic. The more intelligent move is to just pause and ask, wait a minute, where's the actual evidence for this? Magical thinking just skips that step entirely. And here's another one of those mental shortcuts, just blindly following the rules. I mean, think about someone who follows a recipe that says bake for 20 minutes, even if the food is clearly still raw. That's not being disciplined, right? That's a failure to adapt. A smarter brain notices when the plan isn't lining up with reality and makes a change. It doesn't follow instructions right off a cliff. Now let's move to our second category, which builds on this idea: habits of mental avoidance. This is less about your brain taking lazy shortcuts and more about you actively running away from any kind of deep or uncomfortable thinking. I mean, seriously, if the idea of sitting by yourself for just 10 minutes without reaching for your phone sends you into a panic, that's a huge red flag. Psychologists point out that this constant need for distraction gets in the way of deep mental processing. Growing minds actually use that quiet time to reflect and solve problems. This isn't about being social. It's about being afraid of your own thoughts. And here's another kind of avoidance. Have you ever been trapped in a conversation with someone who can talk for an hour straight but says absolutely nothing? This is what psychologists refer to as having a low need for cognition. It's not just about what they prefer to talk about, it's a sign that they don't actually enjoy the process of thinking itself. Now look, small talk is fine. It has its place, for sure. It's how we connect. But if your conversations never get past the weather, the traffic, or how tired everyone is, it can signal that curiosity has kind of left the building. A curious mind wants to talk about ideas, not just use filler to pass the time. And of course, there are so many other modern ways we avoid thinking. Bragging about only getting 4 hours of sleep? That's not a badge of honor. It's self-sabotage that absolutely destroys your brain's ability to function. The same thing goes for losing hours to doom scrolling on your phone or binge watching a show you don't even like. That's not relaxing. It's choosing distraction over actual growth. And this brings us to our third and final category of bad habits, and honestly, it might be the most dangerous of all: the ego's blind spots. This is when your own sense of self gets in the way of you, actually getting any smarter. Oh, we've all met this person, right? The one in the meeting or at the dinner party who interrupts, speaks with this unshakable certainty about things they clearly don't understand, and just dominates the whole conversation. But when you really listen to what they're saying, there's just nothing there. That's not confidence. That's a cognitive bias at work. It's this wild psychological quirk where the people who know the least about a subject often believe they know the most. They literally lack the self-awareness to see how little they know. Real intellectual growth looks the exact opposite. It starts with the humility to say, you know what? I don't know, and then having the curiosity to ask questions. Bluster just hides behind volume. And you can see how this one bad habit just snowballs, right? It makes you that person who dismisses new ideas with a lazy, that's dumb, instead of actually exploring them. It makes you a terrible listener because, hey, why listen when you already know it all? And it locks you into repeating the same mistakes over and over because your ego is too busy blaming your boss or the universe instead of just looking in the mirror. Okay, so we've just gone through a whole lot of negative patterns, and you might be feeling a little called out. I know I am in a few of these. But here's the good news, and it's the most important part of this whole explainer. These habits are not your destiny. You can absolutely change them. Let's talk about how to start that rewiring process. Let's be crystal clear about this. This has nothing to do with your genetics or some fixed IQ score you got when you were a kid. Intelligence, at least the way we're talking about it here, is the direct result of the invisible habits you choose to practice every single day. So when you boil it all down, you're really standing at a crossroads. There are two paths your brain can take. You've got the stuck brain, which just repeats mistakes, runs from effort, and shoots down new ideas. And then you have the growing brain, which actively learns from its mistakes, embraces the discomfort of real thinking, and explores new ideas with genuine curiosity. And the reward for picking that second path? It's huge. The source material puts it perfectly. When you finally break these negative habits, the change isn't just in your own head. It's not just that you feel smarter. Other people actually start to notice, and they respond to you differently, almost immediately. So, as we wrap this up, the real question isn't whether you have some of these habits. Let's be real, most of us do. The question is, which one are you going to start working on? Which small, invisible habit are you going to consciously choose to change, starting today? The choice is all yours.